The first gray light of June 7, 1944 does not warm anything on top of Pointe du Hoc. It just makes the open ground visible. 200 yards of churned Norman earth to the south, craters from naval gunfire overlapping each other all the way to the tree line. Corporal Bill Petty is watching that tree line. The BAR is rested across a block of shattered German concrete. Bipod down, barrel still carrying warmth from the night's work. Somewhere behind him, the cliff drops 100 feet to the Channel beach that his battalion climbed 30 hours ago with more than 200 men. He cannot count how many Rangers are still holding this piece of broken ground. The number keeps changing, and not in the right direction. No armor is coming. No artillery is registered on these approaches. Radio contact to the beach is worth exactly as much as it delivers, which has been close to nothing. The shapes in the southern tree line stop being shapes. They become helmets. German helmets, moving forward in open order, and there is no longer time to think about anything except what is already in his hands. That is what the Browning automatic rifle was designed for. The German army had solved the problem of infantry firepower before the Second World War began. They studied the failures of 1914 to 1918 with an engineer's detachment and identified the central mistake. The Great War Infantry Squad was wrong. 10 rifles are not 10 times the power of one rifle because the enemy can take cover from any single rifle and continue fighting. Distributed firepower is diluted firepower. The correct answer was concentration. Put the automatic weapon at the center of the squad, build the squad around it, and let the riflemen exist to feed and protect the weapon rather than fight independently. The result was the MG34, and then the MG42. The MG42 fired 1,200 rounds per minute. Quick change barrel, air-cooled, sustained by a trained crew that could keep it running almost indefinitely with adequate resupply. On the Eastern Front, in defensive positions, in the grinding, attritional engagements the Wehrmacht excelled at, the system was devastating. The German rifle squad was not 7 men and a machine gun. It was a machine gun that happened to travel with 7 men. The squad existed to serve the weapon. The weapon was the mind of the squad. Every tactical decision, where to position, how to advance, when to break contact, was made in reference to the machine gun's capabilities and limitations. This worked. The problem was not that the doctrine was wrong. The problem was that it required certain conditions: a crew to operate the weapon, time to emplace and register it, sustained ammunition resupply, and an enemy concentrated enough that the rate of fire would find them. In the war Germany expected to fight, those conditions existed. In the war they were about to get at Pointe du Hoc, none of them did. Rangers were a different war from the start. The 1st Ranger Battalion was activated in 1942, patterned on the British Commandos, designed for raids and direct action at the edge of enemy lines. The model was shock. Strike before dawn, hit hard, break contact before the enemy can organize a response, and bring the men home. The entire Ranger philosophy assumed the unit would always be the aggressor, choosing the moment of contact, moving too fast for an enemy response to consolidate. It was a theory of violence built on speed and surprise, and it worked as long as the Rangers controlled both. The problem with a philosophy built entirely on aggression is what happens when the enemy gets a vote. On the night of January 30th, 1944, the 1st and 3rd Ranger Battalions moved through darkness towards Cisterna, Italy, with orders to seize the town ahead of the broader Anzio breakout. They moved in silence, using drainage ditches to approach without detection. What they were moving through was a trap. The German 4th Parachute Division and elements of the Hermann Göring Division were already in position, waiting. And the Rangers did not know this until contact was made and the scale of what surrounded them became undeniable. By then, there was no breaking contact. There was no aggressor anymore. There were Rangers trying to fight their way out of an encirclement against a prepared force with numbers, position, and time on their side. Of the 767 Rangers who entered that engagement, 6 came back. Cisterna did not end the Ranger program, but it answered in blood the question that training exercises could never resolve. When a Ranger unit can no longer choose the terms of its own fight, when the raid becomes a siege and the assault becomes a defense, what does it have? The BAR was not the only answer, but it was the one answer a Ranger could carry from the moment he stepped off the boat. And the men who survived Cisterna, and the ones who studied it afterward, understood that difference in a way the procurement officers in Washington never quite did. The Browning automatic rifle weighed just over 20 pounds with a loaded magazine. 20 rounds, same .30-06 cartridge as the M1 Garand, cyclic rate of roughly 500 rounds per minute at its faster setting. No quick change barrel, not belt fed. By the technical metrics that define superior automatic weapons in conventional doctrine, the BAR was not in the MG42's category. By the metrics that define survival in a Ranger operation, it was in a different category entirely. 20 pounds meant one man. One man could carry it through a night march, sling it across his back for a cliff climb, and have it in his hands the moment contact happened. No emplacement, no crew, no setup time. The 20-round magazine meant the gunner reloaded often, which was a real limitation in sustained defensive fire, and no limitation at all in the 30-second contact engagement a Ranger raid typically produced. 500 rounds per minute meant that in the first 3 seconds of any engagement, the BAR could put more fire on a German position than a rifle squad could generate in 30. And 3 seconds in a Ranger operation is often the whole fight. But the number that mattered most was not rounds per minute, or magazine capacity, or effective range. It was one. One man. The entire Ranger doctrine, the raid, the direct action strike, the assault through a defended breach, assumed that the men executing it would be few. Too few to separate their automatic fire from their assault element. Too few for a dedicated crew to establish a support by fire position before the lead element was in contact. The German machine gun put the weapon at the center and organized the squad outward from it. The BAR, in Ranger hands, went to the front, not behind the assault, in it. Point of the raid, tip of the breach, last weapon in the corridor when men were running for the exit and the enemy was behind them. Because if it came to that moment, a rifle wasn't enough, and a machine gun crew wasn't fast enough. One man with a BAR could be, in the decisive 3 seconds, everything the squad needed. Not supported by fire superiority, generating it. That distinction between receiving support and creating it is what the Rangers who kept the BAR knew, and the procurement system that tried to retire it did not. On the morning of June 6, 1944, Lieutenant Colonel James Rudder led 225 men of the 2nd Ranger Battalion out of landing craft in heavy surf and pointed them at a cliff. Pointe du Hoc jutted into the English Channel between Utah and Omaha Beach, and the guns mounted in its casemates were capable of ranging both landing zones. The Rangers' mission was to climb the cliff under fire, silence those guns before they could be brought to bear on the landings, and hold the position. Supreme Command gave the 2nd Rangers the most dangerous assignment on D-Day. The guns were gone. The Germans had moved them inland before the invasion. The Rangers went up the ropes under direct fire from the cliff top. Men falling when German grenades cut the lines, others climbing on extension ladders mounted to duck trucks, others pulling themselves up hand over hand through rifle and machine gun fire. And when they reached the top, they found empty casemates. The primary target of the entire operation was a decoy. Sergeant Leonard Lomell didn't stop. He didn't stop when the casemates were empty, didn't stop when the hedgerows inland gave no clear indication of where the guns had gone. He moved south with Sergeant Jack Kuhn, located the displaced 155mm guns in an orchard approximately a mile from the coast, loaded, aimed, and unattended, and disabled them with thermite grenades and by smashing their sights and traversing mechanisms. The battery that could have turned D-Day into a catastrophe never fired. 2 Rangers in the dark made that happen. And then the Germans came to take the point back. Through the afternoon and night of June 6th, elements of the 352nd Infantry Division pressed the Ranger perimeter from the south. The Rangers had started the day with 225. By nightfall, fewer than 90 could still fight. The destroyer USS Satterlee put naval gunfire on German assembly areas when Rangers could spot for her. And later, the battleship USS Texas added her weight. Naval gunfire disrupts. It does not stop infantry at close range. At close range, the only thing that exists is the man beside you and what he's carrying. The BAR gunners were positioned at the corners and open approaches of the perimeter, each one anchoring a section of line. When the German infantry moved across the open ground on the morning of June 7th, in the same open order advance the MG42 doctrine was designed to support, the BARs engaged without pause. One man, prone behind German concrete, automatic fire laid across the whole approach. The German infantry hit the ground. Some didn't get up. The Rangers on the flanks worked their rifles into the gaps the BAR fire created, and the Germans who had come to push 90 exhausted men off a 100-foot cliff could not close the distance. Lomell was hit twice during the two-day defense. He kept fighting. When elements of the 5th Rangers, the 116th Infantry, and tanks from the 743rd Tank Battalion finally reached Pointe du Hoc on June 8th, they found fewer than 90 Rangers holding a perimeter they had held for nearly 40 hours, with no reinforcement, no armor, no guaranteed artillery support, and the weapons they had carried up the cliff. Every man still standing at Pointe du Hoc had learned, in a way that no training problem could simulate, the difference between the weapon that looked adequate on paper and the weapon that was still in your hands on the second morning. German commanders assessing Ranger operations returned to the same problem across multiple engagements. The principle was sound. Identify the automatic weapon, concentrate fire to suppress it, neutralize the crew, advance on the flanks. Against conventional American infantry built around crew-served weapons, this worked. Against Rangers, it came back wrong, the same way every time. The reason was that the BAR didn't behave like a crew-served weapon because it wasn't one. It behaved like a rifleman with a different rifle. You could not fix the automatic weapon position and maneuver around it because the position moved with the man. He was not protected by the squad, he was inside it. Suppressing him suppressed the squad, and suppressing the squad suppressed him. Which meant the German tactic of isolating the machine gun from its supporting element, correct, proven against every conventional machine gun in the war, simply didn't apply. The BAR complicated the normal logic of suppressing a fixed crew-served weapon. It moved with the assault element, generated automatic fire from unexpected angles, and repositioned before the enemy fully fixed its location. The MG42 was technically superior to the BAR by every measure that applied to sustained positional warfare. In the first 30 seconds of a Ranger engagement, the 30 seconds Ranger Doctrine was built around, the measures that applied were different. The BAR was not a lesser machine gun. It was a different answer to a different question, and the Rangers who kept it knew the question the procurement system wasn't asking. In Korea, Ranger companies still carried BARs through the entire war. The same weapon, the same role, the same logic. When the Army finally retired it in the late 1950s, the M60 taking the sustained fire role, the M14 the rifleman's, the decision made sense for the war they were planning. A conventional land fight in Europe, built on firepower and maneuver, at a scale the BAR was never meant for. But that was never the Ranger's war. The Ranger goes in light. He comes out the same way. What he carries is what he has, and when everything depends on it, there is no time to wish for a weapon he didn't bring. The dark reason the Rangers never gave up the BAR is not sentiment, not tradition, not the stubbornness of men attached to a familiar tool. It is the same reason the weapon existed in the first place. Every Ranger mission begins with the assumption that, at the critical moment, support will not arrive in time. The men on the rope, the men through the breach, the men holding a shattered promontory above the English Channel. They operate on the premise that what they carry is the plan. Not the backup, the plan. And in that kind of fight, the weapon that fires like a machine gun and moves like a rifleman is not a compromise between two better options. It is the right answer to the only question that matters. The Germans understood automatic weapons better than anyone. They built the finest sustained fire weapon of the war to prove it. What they didn't build was a machine gun one man could take up a cliff in the dark and still be using 40 hours later when the last German infantry came across the open ground. Rangers did, and they knew enough not to put it down. If you want to understand the deeper logic beneath the weapons and the men who carried them, the reason certain tools endure while better ones disappear, subscribe to Warfare Unclassified. The story underneath the history is what we're here for.